Everything that you do with your Agile is real creativity. You're no different than an author. You're no different than a filmmaker. And I think it's important to allow your creativity, your imagination to enter into your practice, because until you see that, you can't look at a customer and say, what do they need? What problem are they having that I could help solve with my unique specific talents, using Agile, using Scrum, or not?
Hey everyone, I'm Dave, and Chris is back with us. Is he going to tell us about breaking the rules at work to help you, your teams, your organizations with better ways of working? Chris,
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Dave. It's great to be back, man. Thanks for having me on again.
You got it. So let's talk about breaking the rules at work.
Sure.
What are we talking about there?
Well, maybe it's less about breaking the rules at work and more about following your own voice. I think it's important, and maybe now more than ever in the Agile space, that we're not so focused on rule worshiping. And I don't mean bad behavior. So I don't mean, stealing stuff and, doing things that endanger others. But of course, I always say, scroll up and down in LinkedIn, you'll see people arguing over what are the rules of Agile? Like, how many people am I allowed to have my stand up? And can I bring my manager? We seem to be focused more on precisely following those rules. And my suggestion these days is that if you want to evolve with agility and you want to avoid, what seems to be happening in the market, it's time to stop worrying about the rules so much and rather following the principles better. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. One of the things when I work with teams is, what was the intent or what is the purpose behind that practice? So you bring like the daily stand-ups, right? And so when you look at the history of those, I think it was Borland Corporation, for those of you that remember Quattro Pro, give a shout out in the comments. But this is where they noticed that when those teams met together for an hour every day, that their productivity shot up. And then they basically said, well, we don't need to meet an entire hour every day. 15 minutes, did it enough. So that's what I always remind teams is there's a purpose behind the practice. Now, sometimes maybe that purpose doesn't apply and it's okay to bend or break a little bit, right?
Yeah. And I'm especially interested in what you're doing because, you and I are working together off the camera here. I started something called the Forge Genesis, which was all about saying, well, look, I don't think that just memorizing Scrum and taking more certifications is going to make you better. And it may not help you get a job anymore. And people are noticing that to the point where, let's face it, people are saying things like Agile is dead. People are saying things like, I'd rather call myself a project manager, or I'd rather consider what I do product management, because they're disavowing themselves a little bit from the Agile Scrum world because it seems like there's not much place for it. And it's lost favor and people are no longer trusting it. And so, I don't know, I think to say Agile is dead is about as interesting as saying that healthy eating is dead. You can say that all you want, but at the end of the day, if you don't follow the principles of healthy eating, at some point, it's going to catch up with you. So just because a diet didn't work for you, and just because one of these fads, one of these really precise diets that promises the moon in a record period of time, because it didn't work for you, doesn't mean that agility overall isn't still a great idea and doesn't have a ton of merit in practice. It's just that if you're trying to follow a precise diet and that diet's not working for you, then the diet's dead, but not healthy eating overall. So I think it's time when we look at what we're doing in Forge Genesis to start saying, well, what is it that you, Dave, offer to an organization? And you can offer that inside an organization, or if you're more entrepreneurial and you want to offer it as a product, a service, whether you want to offer a training product, whether you want to create an agency of some kind, whether you want to create some sort of Agile practice or Agile consultancy or something else entirely. I think what you're doing is really important, because breaking the rules to me means I'm no longer going to pitch myself as a Scrum master, meaning someone who just obeys and implements the rules of Scrum. But in your case, you're talking about making meetings that are more effective. You're talking about using that time, as you mentioned with Borland. It's like, if we're doing it in an hour and it's working, what's the minimum effective dose, right? What's the smallest amount we can get away with? Because we're drowning people in meetings. We want to give them some of their time back. How can we do that? And you've found a way to do that, and you want to offer that precise um, skill set and knowledge to people in our industry to make work better. And I think that's the key to the future of agility.
Yeah, absolutely. I came to the determination years ago, you can follow all the practices in Scrum and whatever scaled framework, and the team still doesn't deliver, and the customer is not satisfied. Ultimately, we need to think about the customer. And in the type of work, not just software development, but I've seen this in many other industries as well, where it's called knowledge work, right? Like people that have to use their skills and their minds and their hands to create code or a proposal or anything, right? There's so much inherent talent in people to unlock what everybody can bring in a group.
Yeah.
Like that is the secret. That is the secret that I found. And like we've talked about, you and me, sometimes it's just bringing together things that people already know, but in a specific combination adds a new dimension, unlocks a new power that maybe people haven't thought of. And that's what I'm bringing to the forefront. I'm going to be starting a cohort here where we're going to talk about visual collaboration, right?
Mhm.
It's not just about using whiteboards, but how do you structure that time so that everyone is engaged? Because when you just have one person, a scrum master or a product owner, hey folks, here's your backlog, right? How do you know the team's really going to understand the first time? We can all nod our heads, but we don't know that we have that alignment
That's
at the
right.
end. But when you have true alignment, when everybody's singing on the same sheet music and everybody is moving in the same direction, it's like magic. And that's the magic that the
Mm.
early folks in Agile, been able to adopt. And I want to help others in whatever capacity organization I'm in to find that and to get those amazing results to delight their customers.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's go back a step because what you just said is really important. When we talk about breaking the rules, I think what I really mean is not only not following just following the rules of Scrum and considering your worth as a Scrum master or coach as your ability to memorize those rules, but it's your ability to bend them and flex them as you
Mhm.
do when you're breaking a rule, right? We really say we're bending a rule. So we're not outwardly rejecting it or doing the opposite, but we're morphing it and molding it so that it works for this particular scenario with this particular group. And you have a skill, Dave, where if you can go into a room and optimize those interactions and make them so that they're more valuable, they're more efficient, and it works for this team, you are offering a service. So one of the rules I really want you to break is to stop considering your worth, your fealty to, or your knowledge of Scrum or Agile principles, because memorizing those and applying them in a checkbox fashion probably won't work for you. You mentioned when Agile was invented or first originated. That was 3 decades ago almost.
Yeah.
And at this point, what worked then can't be expected to work now. Nothing we did 30 years ago. Like, would you use the smartphone you had 30 years ago?
If I had a smartphone.
If you even had a smartphone 30 years ago, you probably had a flip phone, if anything, right?
Yeah.
If yeah, I was probably on my first, I don't even know if flip phones were a thing yet. Back in, we're talking 1995 at this point. I think I had what big brick with buttons on it. It's probably what I was using. A
Now we're
Nokia
going
something
way
something.
back.
The Nokia 101. Look it up. And anyway, the idea is that what worked 30 years ago can't be expected to work today. So in this modern workplace, if you're not adapting how you work, if you're just going to companies and saying, I know a Scrum, I took the thing and I memorized the rules, you should hire me as a Scrum Master. You need a Scrum Master, I'm a Scrum Master, we should work together. No, it's the value that you bring to an organization that you get hired or fired on. And I know a lot of Agile coaches, and this happens in the classes I teach now, where people are saying, I've had a new boss and they've come in and told me, I don't like Agile and I don't like Agile coaches, and I don't think they provide any value to the organization. So, okay, what does that mean for me then? Well, either you have to be comfortable with being called a glorified project manager or a tech lead or something, but if Agile makes you happy, like I got into this because I love the way it felt to help people get to an outcome faster. Think about why you got into it, Dave. Maybe it was similar reason or different. But I want you to think of your worth as being someone who brings that solution, that specific solution, to a specific business problem, which in your case is not better, faster, cheaper software development. It's more efficient interactions, specifically meetings, facilitations, those kinds of events. You found a way to do it better because you're working on it in the Forge Genesis with us. Forge Genesis is a group of peers who get together and work on a product idea or an offering. I teach you the science and the art of talking about it, marketing it, advertising it, getting on social media and starting to create buzz around it, finding your voice, understanding what your customer is, how to talk to them, and how to sell it to them. Which are, I always say there are no agile problems, only human problems. If you have a great idea, it's not enough to just sit there and go, "Ooh, look, I know agile." If you have a great idea, agile doesn't work unless you have support across the organization. If you can't sell the vision and get other people rowing in the same direction, using the same techniques, none of it will work no matter how stampy stamp Scrum.org or Agile Alliance approves of your method. Your method almost doesn't matter. Agile is so simple and fluid that it should be timeless. Like principles of do the most important thing first. Keep your eye on simplicity. Make sure this is sustainable. We can carry on this pace indefinitely. Those principles got nothing to do with software development exclusively, and they have nothing to do with memorizing a set patterns of actions. So tell the audience what it is you're working on, because I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So this is where the Forge Genesis really helped me to examine myself and what are my passions? What is it that I want to help people to do? When I look back at my career, I mean, I'm just a regular guy. I'm not tall. I'm not super handsome, maybe a little bit handsome. But one of the things that I found is when I look back at what people tell me I'm really good at, they've always been saying, "Oh, you're really good at facilitating." And there's been several situations in my career whereas I picked up these techniques. Again, nothing new. I'm sure that if I could go into a 30-minute conversation, everybody would say, "Yeah, I know those things." But I kind of figured out when I put things in certain combinations and certain arrangement, we got amazing results because one of the things I'm learning is it's not about more meetings. It's not about larger meetings. It's not about longer meetings. It's about setting up the environment for the right interactions to happen to get people aligned. Because how many times do we get into a meeting and then out of that, like, well, what did we agree to? Or I'm really not following. Or how many meetings have I been in where after the fact, people come up to me and tell me things that I say, you should have said that in the meeting,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So we live in an amazing time where we've got AI coming, and I figured out how to incorporate AI into this as well. But how to get AI to help get to interactive sessions that are super quick and everybody is engaged. And at the end, there's clarity, there's alignment. I've been in the situations where I've run these sessions, especially during COVID, because things were changing really fast at that time. Businesses had to learn how to stay afloat with all the challenges going on, where executives would say at the end of the session I facilitate, "I'm going to take this to the vice president." They were so thrilled how quick we came to an alignment and how everybody agreed to it that they wanted to take the outcome of what I've helped the team produce and share it to other executives. So I
Right.
want to help everybody that I can have time with get to learn these techniques. And I've taught these to others also throughout the years, and they've seen similar results that I have. So I want to help everybody show how to
Yes.
get this done.
And if you have a pat, yeah, for those of you watching, hopefully you can see how excited Dave is because for the first time in a long time, he's not just walking into a room and people saying, "Okay, be a Scrum Master as described by the Scrum guide." And so when we as Scrum Masters listen to the originator of Scrum say that even with all this great stuff that we invented, we're still at a 60% failure rate for software projects. That's terrible. And it's an indicator that Scrum's not going to save your bacon. It's going to be the thing that this particular company needs to do differently. To me, Scrum and Agile are all about change. And that's why it's so hard to make it stick because it represents a different way of doing things, not the way we've always done things. So it's going to be scary to people. In your case, you found a valuable way for a certain kind of customer to do one thing better in a way that helps them. And what's important to remember is that you will never see this as a job description because what works for one company, you said something really important. And it was basically the idea that you found somebody who found value in what you were good at. Not everybody will see that. Not everyone will see it right now. So part of breaking the rules means knowing that you're going to go out to maybe 100 companies or go 100 places inside your company, and not every team will want what you do. Right? It's not
Yeah.
for everybody. But the secret is we live in an age where on social media, theoretically, you can be in front of millions of people instantaneously with very, very low effort. You don't need special equipment, special privilege, special, anything. Everyone has roughly equal access. So your job is to find those people who want what you do, which means one of the rules I want you to break is that you don't just talk about what people say you can talk about when it comes to Scrum and Agile. A lot of people go on LinkedIn and say, I've noticed this. And someone will say, well, that's not in the Scrum guide, or that's not very Scrummy, or that's not very this, or Jeff Sutherland didn't say that. And they want to be gatekeepers of what agility or Scrum or Kanban is. And that doesn't make any sense. There really shouldn't be any such rules or no hard and fast rules. When someone like you comes along and says, listen, I found this one area and I happen to be really, really good at making this better. Let me help you make yours better too. For example, if you're a trainer and you found a way to deliver content or a course in a way that makes it stickier, more engaging, longer lasting, and a better return on investment for a company, some company will be interested in that. Right now, you have companies who are doing computer-based training, web-based training, and all the content is relatively uniform. Sure, customizing it to the company is helpful, but if you have a way of explaining a topic, I talk about vision all the time when I do my thing for corporate, and I have a way of explaining it. The vision is like having a GPS. You can't just turn it on. If you don't punch in a destination and tell it where you're going, you're never going to get anywhere different because it doesn't know which turn-by-turn directions to give you. So when that happens, you found a way to deliver that content in a way that's meaningful and accessible by a different group of people. You find that person. They'll pay you to do what you do. Now you just got to go and find another one. And I think this is where, if you want to stand out in the crowd in 2025 and beyond, you have to have some sense of, well, either I'll roll with whatever changes the gatekeepers are making in the industry, which means you'll follow more rules as they change and morph, and just do battle in the aisles of LinkedIn about what good Agile is and ain't, or you'll make your own thing and learn how to bring it to one organization or many organizations to benefit them. And it means specializing a little bit. A lot of people are bandwagon jumpers, so when we look right now, if you go on LinkedIn, everyone's got an action figure. One person made some image and
Yeah,
they've
that's
got an
right.
action figure themselves with their tennis racket and their cup of coffee. And oh,
Yeah.
look, it's me. And everyone's like, I have to have one of those too. And everyone's doing the same thing. AI, to my mind, is a bit overhyped in the sense that the technology's super cool. I love that I can summarize a meeting at the end with AI, but it's going to be a long time before you can replace human creativity, ideation, innovation, storytelling, those wonderful things that we as humans do. It'll be a long time before that can be replaced with any convincing authenticity or authority. And even if you can, why would you? Why would you want a book that was written by a robot when a book that was written by a person is so much more personal to you? Yeah. I don't want things that are in an aggregate of. To me, that's just heavy, heavy computational power. It's not real intelligence. And so, everyone is drawing everything with AI art or AI photos now. But that doesn't mean that when you're doing something that everyone else is doing, you're a follower. You're not a leader. So my suggestion is that people like you, Dave, and people like your listeners should start thinking about, even if you don't do anything differently right now, start thinking about what is it that you do? What do you offer companies that they need? Not every company. You don't have to please everybody. But if you have a skill, a service, a product, or something that will make life better for one organization, for one group of people, find those people and start delivering.
Yeah. And what's the saying you tell us about the Navy SEALs, right? Do what works and let the science follow.
Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it? Do what
Yeah.
works and we let science follow. So, you can keep standing in the same line, going through the same door as everybody else, saying, I need a Scrum Master job. How come Scrum Master jobs are so hard to find? Well, everyone's standing at the same trough looking for the same thing. And, 10 years ago, when everyone said, boy, if you want to make good money, become a Scrum Master, people who signed up for that are still sitting there hoping upon hope that the days of the $150 an hour Scrum Master are coming back. They may not be. Right? It's not the same thing as saying Agile is dead, but overpaying for Agile talent when there is so much supply for the same amount of demand or less economically is not a great move for you and your family. You have to start creating demand. That's the age that we live in. That's the age that AI has created. That's the age that social media has created. Right. People want to find solutions to their specific problem.
Fantastic. How can people reach out to you to find out more, to get into more discussion about with you about this?
Lately I've been talking about this a lot. I took 4 months off or 5 months off of podcasting, but I'm back now. My last couple of episodes have been about how everything that you do with your Agile is real creativity. You're no different than an author, you're no different than a filmmaker. And I think it's important to allow your creativity, your imagination to enter into your practice, because until you see that, you can't look at a customer and say, what do they need? What problem are they having that I could help solve with my unique specific talents, using Agile, using Scrum, or not? One of the people in the Forge, as you know, is creating a community for people who are ex-veterans or have a lot of experience in school athletics, and they define themselves by their team, by the strength of their team. And then when those collegiate days are over, their service days are over, there's a gap. They're struggling to find a place where they can offer their service with meaning. So go to badassagile.com, check out the last few episodes where I talk about everything you do is creativity. Stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like an owner or a creator and adding value to the organization. Stop worrying about, am I a certified Scrum Master? Start worrying about, what valuable problems can I solve for this company? If you want to reach out to me directly, it's chris.williams@fusechamber.com, or just chris@badassagile.com works as well.
And I'll put those in the description so you can just click on it, go to his website, or email him. Chris, thanks again for joining me today. Really appreciate it, sir. Everyone, thanks for sticking around. BetterWaysOfWorking.com. Please sign up for the Substack. I put out stuff a couple times a month. And of course, this channel or this podcast, give it a like, subscribe so you never miss another episode. Thanks again, everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you, Dave.